Sociocultural theory. Now, to have an overview of sociocultural theory and where it started from, we have the Soviet child psychologist, socio-psychologist Vygotsky, extremely brilliant, who died at the early age of 37. Now, despite this, the influence that his writings have had on the world is monumental. So, several people across the world have now taken up sociocultural theory of learning as a part of understanding child development. So, Vygotsky was born in 1896. That was the same year when, if you would remember, Piaget, who also talks about, who has done a lot of research in child psychology. That's the same year when he was born. And while Piaget focuses on the child development in terms of the internal development of the child, Vygotsky, on the other hand, says that learning happens not within the child first, but within the social context within which the child is growing up. So Piaget pays a lot of attention to what happens within the mind, and Vygotsky would say that the social context within which the child is there, that this is what is internalized by the child. That is what is picked up by the child. And this is what leads to the development. He was a researcher, theorist of child development, done a lot of work. However, he fell into disfavor with the Russian government and his work was not published. However, it was in 1962 that his first book was translated into English, Thought and Language, and ever since he has been there. And he has guided several strains of research from the sociocultural theory of learning. He had several followers within Russian followers also. You have Leonetiv, you have several other researchers who have taken up the work of Vygotsky. What Vygotsky says in the sociocultural theory in this module will just cover the basics, and then we will move on to discuss in detail each and every aspect of the sociocultural theory. You have some leading supporters who have worked and developed the work of Vygotsky. You have Jerome Brunner, 1985. You have Lantov. You have Barbara Rogoff, who says learning is similar to apprenticeship, like when the children learn by watching other people. And when the elders actually allow the learners to learn from them, this is when the learning actually happens. You have Vertish, a lot of work done by Vertish, and Vertish focuses more on the social context. And he says the situation in which learning is happening is extremely important for the success or failure of the learning. And then, of course, you have Lantov. But apart from these, you have several other writers also, which you would see in your textbook also. You have McFerty, you have Ohata, and they're working on different aspects. Now, talking about different aspects, what are these different aspects? So, we say that social context of learning is primary. So, it does not say that it is only important. It says it is primary. That is, before the learners can actually learn, the learning is out there on the social plane, and this is what is picked up by the children, and that is how they learn. So their sense of self comes from their social self. So they look at others and then they realize that they also are a being. This is completely opposite to what Piaget would say. Then he focuses more on zone of proximal development. A zone of proximal development would mean that a child can only learn from the stage he or she is in or on to the next stage, that is the next development stage. So the learning has to be in line with that. So no matter what you try to teach the child will not skip the next stage. The child can only accelerate or go through it fast, but he or she cannot exit that stage. Something similar to what Gresham says, and we'll have a discussion of how this is different from what Gresham was saying earlier. Then we have learning as apprenticeship, how the learners learn by watching other people and by seeing how it happens. We'll discuss this again. And then they also focus on what other people have not focused upon. That is the role of inner speech. And we'll talk about in detail what inner speech is.